Welcome to the garage for a video I did not want to make. So you can probably tell my last video was in MHD stage 2 0 to 60, but my car did not feel all that quick. Now, I've been having on and off issues for many months now that I keep throwing fixes at, and it's not fixing them. I did spark plugs and that smoothed out the engine quite a bit. I did XHP, that smoothed it out quite a bit. I installed MHD, which smoothed it out a little bit more, but the problem still persists. So the problem I've been having has been with pretty rough drivability at low and mid RPMs. And this is actually visible on the torque gauges. You can watch the torque vary up and down like 20 or 30 pound-feet. So it's pretty significant and you can feel it. Sometimes it doesn't do it, sometimes it does do it. Like right here. Yep, you can feel that. So from things I've read and things I've heard, this is a pretty common B58 issue. Now, I struggle to believe that that's normal, but there's a lot of people that have it. Most people don't report any check engine lights. However, I did get one just randomly on the highway. I cleared it immediately and it never came back, and I never had one for months beforehand or afterwards. So the fix that I'm gonna try today is my VANOS actuators. Now, I came to this conclusion based on something I read in the forums where someone had the same symptoms and presumably the same issue. So I did some data logging and this is what I came up with. So on this chart here, I have RPMs showed by this gray line here, and you can see all my cylinder timing corrections. Now, as you can see, you really shouldn't see more than, 2 or 3 on normal acceleration, but in certain parts of this, I'm getting really terrible timing correction and it's running like absolute garbage. So from there, I took a look at the torque limiters and you can see that throughout the RPM range, the torque limiters are kicking in pretty badly. So I thought maybe my settings were incorrect in MHD or XHP. So I tried that and this was actually the log that happened. This is without the torque limiters on in either app. So that is definitely not the issue. So in MHD, you want to go into options, and then you want to scroll all the way down to VANOS. Right here, you see VANOS exhaust actual, VANOS exhaust required, and VANOS intake actual and VANOS intake required. And this was the resulting log with those parameters. Now the gray line, which is marked off, is RPMs, and you can see the VANOS actual and VANOS required for both the exhaust and intake sides. The intake VANOS, you can see that what the DME is calling for and what the VANOS is actually doing, they are pretty much the same. So these lines coincide almost perfectly, so that is completely normal. But as you can see, the exhaust VANOS is jumping absolutely all over the place. So that explains quite a bit why the drivability is feeling just like that chart. It bounces up and down constantly. So that is how you can diagnose the VANOS issue. Now this is your VANOS actuator. There are 2 of them. It's got a little nub that goes back and forth. So one on the intake side and one on the exhaust side of the engine. It's kind of in the back underneath all that plastic junk. So to get to where we need to be, it's the same process as getting to the last spark plug. Now I've done a video on that in the past, so go watch that video to learn how to remove all that crap. So I will see you when that is done. All right, so once all that is removed, you can get to the VANOS actuators by coming down here in the back. And as you can see, there is a little silver clip right there. You can see it kind of to the left of the wire. Now that is your VANOS actuator, and the silver clip is what holds that in. So this is your actuator. The silver part sits against the engine and this little wiring plug is downwards. So what you want to do, the silver clip that I just showed you clips right into here, and there's another one on that side. So you want to take a small screwdriver and get it underneath there and pry it upwards, and it'll twist, and that should bring it out of the engine. All right, so this is really tough to film, but I'm going to try my best. So what you want to do is get the screwdriver between the actuator and the clip. So right about there, and you want to pry that upwards and get it started. As you can see, mine fits underneath it a little bit. And then apparently, once you get that started, you can reach in there and twist it by hand. Okay, so the actuator is free, but it's only being held in by the clip right there, as you can see. So I'm gonna pry up on that little gray part on the inside. Zoom in on that. So if you pry on that, it should unclip. All right, so what I did was I used a little plastic pick tool and I pried this gray part up right here. Now, once you pry that up, it should unplug. Now, for those of you that know, this plug mechanism is pretty much exactly the same as what's on the coil packs, so it just snaps upwards and then you should unplug it. So I forgot to mention one little weird thing I did was I took the wire that runs to the actuator and I actually tied it to the fuel rail, which may not be the smartest thing to do, but this was hanging down in the way, so I just took some string and tied it up, and that made things much easier. Okay, so I finally got the old actuator unplugged, and as you can see, they look a little different. So my issue is the rubber seal that comes on the new actuators seems to still be in there. So this is actually pretty simple to remove from the actuator. I'm just gonna pull it off and I'm gonna put the new actuator in and see how that goes. Okay, so I've plugged it in and I've put it back into the spot there, and now I'm trying to rotate it back into place with the clips, and there you go. It is secured in place. Okay, so I'm gonna put everything back together and hopefully that fixes my issue. Now, to be completely honest, I took a wild guess if that one was the exhaust VANOS, which is the one that gave me issues. The reason I picked that side is because there's one there, which I did, and there's one like right there. And right over there is the intake manifold, and down there is the exhaust and the turbo, so I just made the guess that this one is the exhaust, and that one's the intake. So I guess we'll see. All right, moment of truth. Will the car start? Well, it started, so that's a good sign. All right, so I think this is good news. The car is still cold, as you can see, and it is driving super smooth. So I think my problem is fixed, although I will have to wait a little bit before I can come to that conclusion, but things are looking good. All right, so this is a log after I replaced the exhaust VANOS actuator. Now this is a log of timing corrections. Now before I was getting between 7 and 12 sometimes. Now it's definitely not perfect still. I'm getting up to maybe 5, 5.5, 6 even. I'll have to look into that. That might just be fuel quality, I'm not too sure. But the engine definitely pulled much stronger, felt much smoother. So let's look at the next log. All right, so this is a log showing the torque limiters throughout the RPMs. Now, as you can see, it is much improved over the last one. I had the torque limiters kicking in pretty much throughout the RPM range last time, so this is, again, a huge improvement. Not sure what that spike is about. Again, another thing I'll have to look into, but my car is getting better. All right, so this is the log that we have all been waiting for. Now, as you can see, the intake VANOS is once again perfectly smooth. What is actually happening and what the DME is calling for is exactly the same. And now, as you can see, unlike last time, the exhaust VANOS is smooth, and what is happening is what the DME is calling for. So that absolutely fixed the issue. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.